Okay, the first object that we did a multi-view of for this assignment of two multi-view drawings, one defined and one chosen of your own shape, was this shape. And we started in class with an activity where I put, I'm trying to get this kind of under the camera right. I put this under the camera and had students try to build the block that I was here without letting them see anything but this view. And it was to make a point that it's difficult to know the shape I have from this view. They said, how many blocks do you have? And I said, I'm not telling you, just build what you see. So they didn't know if there were 4 blocks, 5, 6, whatever. And so it was intentional, and all day most students didn't have the correct shape on their first or second attempt. In the end though, if I show you a pictorial, kind of a 3D view, or rotate it, they can understand and clearly know. But it was purposeful to say, hey, when we're looking at an orthographic kind of 2D view, that not all of them are very good at helping you understand the part. We suggested a couple others that would have given people a much greater chance, being the ones that looked like a T. Okay, so then you can see 5 blocks, you definitely see more of the shape. And truly orthographic, this one, maybe you can't even tell that block is raised, other than these linking cubes kind of having the way it connected a different texture. So with these plastic cubes, if this was a solid part not made of plastic linking cubes, then maybe that would be really difficult to tell. So anyway, we settled on, though, this block, saying, we can see it, we can see an edge, so it's better to see that block than to hide it behind this face. So we agreed that this is a good face, and then we had a brief moment of talking about wanting a different orientation, or acknowledging that there could be a difference in what orientation you use when you go to do your multi-view drawing. Okay, so here's the deal. Knowing that on this paper, we wanted a front view here, okay, our base view, our most descriptive two-dimensional view being here. We were going to do a top view directly above it, a right view to the right. The ISO paper has already been put into the diagonally up and right direction, which means we have to show with the front, a top right isometric. So knowing that, if you think about taking a view, okay, let's just say this were the front. If we wanted to show an isometric that shows the right and the top, I have to start to take what's on the right side right here and start to bring it into my view, so I can still see a front face here and a right face here. And then I have to tilt it so I can see this top area, right? So I'm going to tilt it this way. So here is, based on how I was holding it, here's a front top right isometric. And what I wanted them to notice is this block is starting to kind of get in the way and kind of upstage my shape a little bit, maybe making it hard to see. And so realizing that when we tilt the right forward, that's happening, we thought, well, maybe that's better if that is on the left side, right? So when we start to tilt this, it's not getting in the way. And this. So basically, we're also tilting the top towards us, so that gets things that are on the top. We considered this one too, right? And thought, well, what if it were this? Kind of the same problem with it being on the right, is that we go to tilt it to see the top, and it starts to obscure, right, and upstage. And so we turn to the right, so now I'm kind of seeing the front and the top and the right, and this is kind of getting in my way. And so basically, it's the upper right corner that we want to try to avoid and get that block as far from, since we're tilting right and forward. So we decided on either it being, trying to get it in the opposite area down here, more down and left, that it's either going to be at the bottom or the left. And we ended up going with the bottom. And so right here on paper, basically, if you take a snapshot, that's what we're going to draw in that space on paper. Okay. With this view, I'm touching the top. We're going to call this the front face. What I'm touching, what you're seeing, what I'm touching is the front. With that defined as the front, I'm now touching the right side here. I'm touching the top side here. So when we go to show the top, I'm going to rotate it and bring it so you can see it. In the third angle projection technique, drawing the top on a drawing sheet is to be done directly above the front. So we'll draw our front here, and we'll do the top straight above it. Okay. In order to show the right side in a third angle projection drawing, So the right side's right here. I'm going to pull it so you can see it. So, right, make sure you're touching and seeing the right side. This, the third angle projection technique, says it's supposed to be directly to the right of the front. Okay? Common mistakes are students roll the shape. So they roll it towards, they go, I need a view over here. So they start to roll it over there. But think about, what side am I starting to see if I roll it this way? Am I seeing the right side, or am I hiding the right side? So this is the left side, right? From the front, that was the left side. This is the right side. So if you roll it over to the right, you're not showing the right side. You're hiding it and showing the left. So we can't do that. Okay? So you need to basically pick it up, okay, from the top and bottom, so you can pivot it, and then bring the right side into view, and then slide it to the right. When you're doing the top, you can pinch it from the sides, okay, so that you can pivot this way to show top and bottom. So just make sure you're rotating it the correct way to show the top. I'm going to grab the top, pivot it towards me. So there's the top, and I'm going to go straight up, okay? All right, now, in class, I said to use a scale of 3 or 4 squares on the orthographic area, just to get these big. You have all this space, we might as well use it. But on the ISO, that scale's too big. It'll grow and get off the shape. So we're going to use 2 triangle lengths per block in the ISO, but we're going to use 3 or 4. I'm going to do 4 to make it nice and big. I'm going to do 4 here, okay? So I'll just set this. It's not the top, I know I set up there, but I'm setting it where you can see it in the camera, and then I'm going to draw right here. So I want to start, I want to make sure that my front view fits underneath this corner, so that when I go to do the right, it can be straight over and the ISO area is not going to get in the way. So maybe I'll define right now this top right corner to be, you know, below this corner, and I want it to be over here where I have room above, right? So I don't know, just stay right there. Okay. And so if I'm going to use a scale of 4 squares per block, that's going to be 4, 8, 12. So let's see, there's 4, 8, and 12. So I'm just kind of counting that out, and then I'm going to draw that top segment with a ruler, so I have very nice straight edges. Now I'm just going to trace around the silhouette. So the outer perimeter of the silhouette is where you see white paper background meet the blue plastic. All right, so from that left corner, I'm going to come down 4, so right there. And then I'll come to the right 1 block, which will be 4. And then, so I'm just going to kind of give myself the dots to connect. Then I'm going to come down 2 plastic squares here, right? So from that corner, so let's see, that'd be 4 and 4 more. I gave myself just enough room. And then I'll come across 1 more block, so that's 4 there. And now I kind of have some guidelines to help me. I'm going to come back up the same distance for those 2 corners to meet, so right there, and then that'll come across, matching up the right side. Okay, so now I'll just use my ruler and make these nice and crisp. I'm going to do all my vertical lines first. I have to keep turning the ruler. And then I'll do my horizontal lines. Okay. And I mean, there's some little imperfections on the corners, but not going to worry about that. So after drawing that face, the next thing we did is we talked about, are there any visible edges that you can see? One way to test that and to think about it is, can I run my finger across this entire surface? Is it all coplanar smooth? Now, I am not trying to acknowledge the edges where the blocks are flush. I don't want to draw this as a bunch of linking cubes. I want to draw this as a solid object. Imagine that it was 3D printed out of solid plastic, this shape, this form, and that it wasn't several blocks connected. So this would all be one smooth surface. There's no edges in there. However, my finger can't get to there without kind of coming up this face and coming over this edge. So that edge is a visible edge. I can see this face, I can see that face, I can see that edge. So that's 1 block up. So I'm going to add a line right here where that feature is, where that block is. And that's visible, so it's solid. Okay? So now let's do the top directly above. The top has to be aligned. So these are not lines that are meant for you to draw. I'm just doing this to show it, but hopefully it's light enough that I can erase still well. I want to make sure that when I draw the top, the left edge of the front and the left edge of the top are perfectly aligned. The right edges should be too. I'll use the same scale and same numbers, so the width of this object doesn't change whether I'm looking at the front, right? Think about holding here as the overall width, and then here's the top. If I rotate this to see the top, my fingers didn't get closer or further apart. The width of this shape is the width, whether I'm looking at the front or the top, okay? So this is the view. Here, I'll kind of set it here so we can see it while I draw above. All right, so I'll start on this top left corner. I just need to be on this line. Let's see. And then the width, since I knew the width the same, I can just trace up here. Right? I don't have to count. I could count, but it'll be the same number, and I should end up at the same vertical line here if you count over 12. Okay. So there is the width of 3 blocks. Now from this left corner, if I come, this is really coming forward, thinking that we're looking from above, coming forward 1 block. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. I know my graph paper is very faint, but it's kind of nice that then my pencil lines will show up. So I intentionally got some copies where this was washed out. From there, remember, I'm just doing the overall silhouette where you see blue and white paper background meet. So I'm going to come over 1 and then forward 1, over 1, back 1, right 1, okay? So if I play connect the dots, there's right 1 and then forward 1 is going to be here, and then right 1 is going to be here, and then back 1 is going to be approximately here. The graph paper is really struggling there, and then right 1 to here, and then I'll connect back, okay? So I'll just do my vertical lines. Do my horizontals. All right, and there you go. Now we're going to think about solid object lines. Okay, this surface is one solid rectangle, but to get to this area that you can see, my finger has to go over an edge. So I actually see this edge, and I need a solid line right here. Okay. Now, I didn't mention this in the front, but there weren't any, so I'm going to mention it now. After looking for edges that you can see, we would look for edges you can't see. Hidden lines, we call them. Okay? Under this surface where there's 3 blocks, there's actually going to be some hidden lines. So there's this surface right here that runs underneath this rectangle that we see. So our eyes see this, can't see through it, but underneath, right, there's this interior edge, right, that's from this face that's running underneath it. So we want to acknowledge that, and we're going to acknowledge that with a dashed line. So I'm going to get my pencil kind of on that same exact line there. And then I'm just going to go dashed. And that shows that that face continues, that edge continues underneath this surface. And the same thing happens here. You think this face, kind of think of that edge right there, keeps on going all the way to the back underneath this. So this is really the back up here, this is the front. So it extends and keeps going. So just a few dashes to have that dash line, okay? All right, now, this is the top view. We want the right view. It is a mistake to grab this and say, here's the right, and rotate it. That'll give you the wrong view to put over here. Okay, to go directly to the right from the front, we have to reset the front view. Now, with the front view reset, we're going to pinch the top and bottom. We'll tap the right side, make sure we know what side's the right side. I'm going to rotate the right side into view. This is the correct view. I just need it straight over. So let's kind of set it somewhere here. I'm going to have to prop it up with a different block actually because it wants to fall over. So get just another block I have here and just kind of set that. Ignore any yellow if you see it underneath. All right, so I'm not going to draw it there. It has to be drawn, okay, straight over. So just a light reminder line that's intended to be erased. I don't know if you could see that one that I had here, right? That's not supposed to be part of my drawing, but I had this vertical line going between the front and the top to make sure that they were aligned. Now I'm going to make sure the bottom of the front and the right are aligned. Okay. All right. So how about I start with this corner, kind of a corner that's closer to the front. I'm going to make sure I give myself some space. It's nice to have space between the views. So we've got all of this space to use. Might as well use it. All right. So I'm going to put a point right here. That'll be that corner, and I'm going to now go to the right 2 blocks, which is going to be, let's see, that's there, that's 4, and then 8. It should be right there. All right, from there, right, remember I'm just getting the silhouette, so the difference between white background and blue, I'm going to go up 3 blocks. That should be the full height. Okay, remember when I rotate to seeing the front to the right, the distance from thumb to index finger doesn't change. The height doesn't change. So I've already kind of mapped out the height. So I can already kind of follow this line over and just be directly above that. So here is that line. Okay. And then down here was this is really a depth direction. It's going from, right, this is really the front here, and that's the back. If you think about, right, this was where the front was. That's the back now when we're looking at the right. So this is depth, this is height. We're going to come across the top here. We're going to add a depth coming forward of 1 block, so right there. And then we're going to come down height-wise 2 blocks, which is going to be to right here. And then I'm going to come forward 1 block, and I should be directly above where I started. Okay, now we're going to think about solid object lines. So running my finger across the surface, right? It's smooth until here, and then there's a face here. And jumping up from this region to this region, I have to climb this face, and the edge that's at the top, I can see that edge. It's right. I'm looking at it. I can touch it and see it. So I need a line right there. Now, within this region, okay, we wouldn't worry about a hidden line where there's an object line, okay? Within this region, we could think about, do we need hidden lines? Well, is there anything happening underneath there? Well, exactly behind those blocks, right, these regions, it's the exact same all the way to the backside. So it's a smooth backside, nothing happening internally, right? Underneath here is 1 block deep, 1 block deep, 1 block deep. So it's all the same. There's no transition from here to here to here, right? It's not like there's another block. If there was a block here, we'd have a hidden line, right? If that's kind of like, well, behind this one, there's only 1, behind there's 2. It's like there's this other face. But we don't have that. We have something that is exactly the same on the top and the bottom. It's the same, right? Or really, this is the right side to the left side. So right side to left side, it's all the same. Okay, so we just have that line. This block right here actually would create a hidden line, right? Because what we drew, you wouldn't know if that block is there or not. The problem is that we already have an object line, right? This face right here and this edge, this internal corner, would be in the exact same location. So if I had put a dashed line here and then put a solid line here, the solid line is going to cover up all the gaps and hide it in, or cover it up. So we don't put a dashed line where there's a solid line. Okay? So there we have it. For our 3 primary orthographics, we have our front, top, right that we were going to go. There's a front, there's a right. I can label them. And then here's our top view. Okay, now to do the isometric, it's already been determined what angle you have to give because that isometric paper is up and right from the front. So holding this front view, we are going to rotate to see the right side. Okay, now you can see front and right, correct? Then while still maintaining that you can see the front and the right, kind of this edge kind of close to you, now start to tilt that edge towards you, kind of pull it towards you where you can start to see the top. And then I'm just trying to hold it in the correct orientation where you can see the front face, the right face, and the top face. This is the correct isometric to go here. The most common mistake we got is people went this way, but this over here, what you're starting to show is the left side. A lot of people show the top. I didn't really have anybody like show the bottom, but I saw people give me the left with the top. Well, you need to say, well, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that is that our third angle projection pattern or technique that we use is supposed to be really predictable about how the shape was presented on paper. And so it'd be confusing to kind of rotate the object one way and put it somewhere else on paper. So this is an okay view. It's just that it has to be diagonally up and left on paper. Okay? So you can give other views. There's just an assigned location for where to give them relative to the front. So if we want to show the left and the top, it just goes here. Let's say you want to show an isometric that shows the bottom with the left. That's a view you can give, but it's supposed to be down and left from the front. Okay, it's supposed to be this way. So I didn't say pick an isometric. I put the ISO paper in the upper right corner, which forced you to go right and top. All right, so drawing this out, how about we start with kind of at the bottom, kind of go up and do this Y shape. So this is going to be the lowest point in the graph. So I'm going to get a point here. And I'm going to use only 2 triangles, I had said, per block, because it gets bigger quicker than the orthographic area. So I'm going to go up 2, and then the isometric paper, it's that traditional kind of Y shape that defines a front, a top, and a right plane. So if I get this to this corner, come up here and go back 1, that's depth, and go width 1, you can start to see where the front is, where the right is, and the top. And then we'll start making these. So on the front, I would use a straight edge, but trying to hold this, I'm just going to go ahead and do it freehand this time. So I'm going to do the width, the height, the width, and there's my front face. Now above that, I'm going to add the depth to get the depth of that top face and the width. That's a horizontal plane. Okay. From that edge, going up a front face, I can kind of trace my way around this like T shape. So from this corner, how about from right here, and I go up 1 block. I'm going to go up 1 before I come to the side one. So right 1 is this way. This is the width direction. That gets me to here. Then I'm going to go up 1 block. From here, I'm going to go width 3 blocks. So that's 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to come down 1 right here. And then I'm coming back width 1 towards the middle. And then I'm going to go down height 1, and I should connect to the other side of that front block. Okay. Now for this right face, from that corner it's going to go back 2 blocks. So there's 1, 2. And then I have a height edge that's going to go up, and it's going to kind of disappear behind this, right? And if I held this, I guess at the exact right angle, if I can get it like perfectly isometric, equal, so you're equally seeing the front and the right and top, it's going to be about like that. So I'm trying to hold it for this purpose. You can see this line here is going to run into and go behind this block, and it should pretty much run into that corner. So I think I'm holding it fairly well. So goes straight up and kind of disappears right at that line. Now, that went behind it. Up on the front here, where that front face is, we do have a block here that's a depth vertical face here that's right at that corner. So from this corner now, I think we're kind of jumping up here to the top. We want to add depth and have this one square. So from this T, right, that right side of the T, from these 2 points, we want to add depth of one block and then bring that down. Right, and then now we're here on this back corner. We're going to do the width of 3 blocks again. It's going to take us to right there. And then I can connect those two. And that should be it. Notice I did not fill in lines where all the transitions of blocks are. Do not start adding a bunch of extra lines. It makes it really messy to see. So we want, if it's a smooth coplanar face, that should be one region that's only defined by the perimeter. No extra lines in the middle. I'm not going to do hidden lines on the isometric. We're simply going to shade it now. Do I have a colored pencil? You guys in the classroom were using colored pencils. I can grab one. It looks a lot better with color. So I pick a direction, like the front face direction, to be dark. And then I pick a another direction to be like a medium color. So think, what are the faces that are facing forward? So that one block on the front and then this T shape. These are facing forward. Just kind of outlining that, and then I'll come back. I'm not a great color, but I'm going to go ahead and just show the finished copy. And you can be sitting here doing it with me. So we're just shading this in nice and dark. So tonal shading. I did want you to do these where they're super crisp. So I wanted rulers, straight edges, shading inside, and fully shading, you know, not leaving like quick shading, but trying to actually truly smooth it out. So everything front is facing forward is dark. I'm going to use a lighter touch with my pencil here to do the side views. And so here, like, that really helps to see that this is different than that. And it's not necessarily perfectly artistic. You may be thinking, well, it kind of depends where the light source really would be in terms of shadows and darkness, but we're just trying to differentiate direction. So that's facing right. This right here is facing right. So see, I'm using some pressure, but not as much pressure on the pencil. Okay. And then on the top, I could leave it really light. So instead of kind of leaving it completely white, if I want to give it the tone that I had red, I can just go over it very, very lightly. Like, just let the weight of the pencil maybe just start to kind of add some color, but not do much more than that. Okay. And my isometric is, I didn't use a ruler, right, but if I wanted it to really be super crisp, I go back. It could have been a ruler. I could darken it up with pen. That's going to work great on top of the colored pencil, but there you go. So your turn is now to recreate a multiview drawing following the third angle projection, where you make a new shape. I would suggest that you don't have a shape where all 6 blocks can touch the ground at once, but you actually, maybe add some depth, some blocks, so you can make the shape you want. There's actually, with 6 blocks, there's hundreds of shapes that could be created that are unique, but make a shape. But I would suggest that when you lay it on the tabletop, excuse me, that you don't have all 6, like I said, touching the tabletop. Okay? All right. From there, you want to pick out your front view and then appropriately do the top straight above, do the right straight to the right, and then the correct isometric to go diagonally up and right is to show right and top. Okay, so whatever your shape is, pick a front carefully. Show the top this way, show the right this way, show the isometric that way. Use a scale that fits in nicely into the space. Remember, keep the front below that corner so you have room to do the right and keep them aligned. I should be able to put a ruler down and see that the tops of the front and right and the bottoms of the front and right are perfectly aligned. And I should be able to see that the right edges and the left edges are perfectly aligned. There you go.